welcome back to Bodies, Barbells and Bagels. We are up to season 2, episode number 18. And today I've got two amazing ladies on with me who I've known for a fair while in the sport. First up, Summer Bernard, who is one of my inspos into getting into competing, which she probably doesn't know, but one of the ladies that I was really inspired by watching me grow up, and now we've become really good friends, and now she's transitioned from figure pro in the IFBB to now bikini pro and placing, I believe, one of the top placing Australians ever on the international stage. So 6th in the Arnold Classic Australia a few years ago before she popped out a baby, and has now become an IFBB pro judge. So thank you, Summer, for being on today.
My pleasure.
And we have got MJ, who goes by numerous surnames, so we're just going to call her MJ. So she is over in Queensland, or Noosa, with us today. And MJ also has competed and done her dues in the IFBB for a very long time, placing overseas in, I believe, the top 3 Arnold's.
I wish it was top 4.
top four in Ohio, so placing very well internationally, just missing out on a pro card, but really always being up there in the mix, winning numerous Australian titles and many accolades, and has now again put on the judge's hat and also runs a online fitness academy for professionals, Vast Academy, and it's now been accredited the first nutrition in Australia. The other day.
Yeah, it's a little bit special actually. And it's probably even another podcast that we could talk about.
Yeah,
but
thanks
for mentioning it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very exciting. But we have officially looking at launching and just been approved with our Cert 4 in nutrition, fully government recognised accredited course, and you don't just have to be a PT to do it. So I won't let that steal the thunder.
We'll get you on another day for that one, because I had a few clients like constantly messaging me asking me, should I go to uni or what courses can I do? So it's great now that there's ones that are run by people that I entrust as well. I actually am going to put one of my staff members through your course. So Jess, get ready to go in.
We have spent 2 years developing this course with numerous dietitians, nutritionists, and industry professionals as well. So it is very exciting.
Awesome. So today, though, we're going to chat about the IFBB. So basically, I want to start up with, I guess, very briefly, because we could talk about this for days, how you guys have been involved, affiliated, all of those things. But I want to start with you, Summer, just, I guess, a little bit of your, why you compete in the IFBB, what you love about it, and also how you now transition into the judging scene.
Okay, well, I guess I always competed with the IFBB because my goal was to be up there against the best and kind of my idols as well. So I saw those girls at Olympia and I was like, I want to do that one day. So that's the reason why I've always stayed with the IFBB. And now, obviously, it took me, I think, 6 years until I got my pro card. Which felt like a very long time, but when I look back now, I'm like, well, it wasn't actually that bad. And I competed in figure and then transitioned to bikini purely because, I know you're going to get into this later, but purely because I just wasn't big enough. I felt like I really found my place in bikini, and that was kind of where I needed to be. And then I'm a little bit older. I'm 35 and I was in my early 30s at the time, and my focus then was to start a family. So hence the reason why I'm off competing at the moment. Whether or not I will go back, I'm still unsure. But this is just my focus for now, and I really wanted to ensure that I was still involved and give back to the federation that has honestly changed my life and given me so much. So hence the reason why I'm judging.
Awesome. And how did you actually come about being a judge? Was it that someone approached you, or you approached them that you wanted to be affiliated?
Yeah, well, I told Tony straight away. I messaged him and just let him know that I really wanted to be involved any way possible, with helping out with the shows here in WA, over at Arnold's whenever I can, and just kind of went from there.
Awesome. All right. MJ, I'm sure you've got a pretty similar story.
It's very similar to Summer's, couple of different variations, but I think both of us have competed in copious amounts of shows, both in Australia and overseas. So
I guess that's how I sort of always wanted to be a part of IFBB Pro League and compete with these guys, because you can always go overseas and really test your limits. It's one thing when you win a lot of your shows in Australia, it's one thing then going overseas and competing against the best in the world and getting creamed. And I actually love doing that, because sometimes, you know, people do think they're a big fish in Australia, and it's really cool to see. And this is why I loved competing overseas and giving these amazing opportunities, was to test my limits over there and realize, like, yes, that's awesome. I might be winning here, but overseas, I think the highest I placed was 4th. And I do remember going to the Worlds, placing 15 out of, I think, 30 girls, and I was absolutely stoked. So most people would find that as a disappointment, but I was stoked that I made prejudging. So I didn't even make the finals for the first time after, I think, 7 or 18 shows in my competing career. So yeah, I guess being a part of the IFBB and all that is, I guess what Summer said, I always looked up to a lot of the girls like Erin Stern, Nicole Wilkins. They were the girls that I looked up to as figure competitors. And, you know, being a part of the IFBB is how you get there. So that's why I always competed with them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then how did you make that transition over to judging? Because obviously you decided to stop at that point.
Yeah. So I stopped competing. I didn't, like Summer, I didn't have any family goals or anything like that. I had more business goals, and I'm sure Summer has those goals too. I was quite young, so I started competing at 23 or 22. I competed for about 6 years, and I'm always 150% everything. So it's either 150% competing or work, and I've always prioritized work first. So in the last final years of competing, I got the feeling that it wasn't what I really wanted to do anymore. I loved the process, and I loved comp prep, which is weird. I started to get just really anxious and putting too much pressure on myself to always win. I guess when you do win shows, you always have the expectation to keep winning. And it's really hard when everyone keeps improving, or you've got new girls coming in that are super fresh and they're already in a better physique than you, and you're still 6 years in trying. So I found it extremely hard to put on muscle. So it's very... I just looked at it and I was just like, look, I can't keep this up. I can't keep up with the quality of the girls anymore. But I still, like Summer, wanted to be involved. And I think above everything, like, I had a really good experience when I competed, and being a judge has allowed, I think, both of us to put a positive aspect on what we love and to still be involved in it. So, and the best thing and the reason why I wanted to become a judge is to share my experiences, to be that smiling judge on the panel when athletes are so nervous on stage, and I can tell they're nervous and I get goosebumps for them, and they can just look down and they can see familiar faces that they've known that have been in the industry. They know what you know, they're going through on stage as well, and even just to give them a small little smile, I know it makes them smile on stage, and that really, I guess, fills my heart when I see that. So yeah, being a judge is pretty special, and it's pretty special being a part of, as I'm sure some would agree, it's pretty special being a part of IFBB Pro League and what we can actually offer the athletes.
Yeah, and I love that, because I think, like, coming from a competitor standpoint, obviously, like, I started competing, I think it was maybe around when you started, MJ. I think around like 2012, 13, I think.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, walking out onto judging panels, and you would get these blank faces, and you would just be like, oh my God, do they hate me? Do they love me? Like, what am I doing? Is that something on my face? Like, and it's not a fun feeling for people. And I always tell my competitors going in, the judges will often not smile at you, and you have to just keep going and try.
Exactly. So, and of course, like, we do have to show a level of professionalism. So, you know, and I know Michael pulls me up because I do get too excited on the judging panel. I get so happy for them that sometimes I dance or get excited, and Michael, our head judge, who's amazing, he's just like, MJ, calm down. Like, so I have to remember that. But I think smiling and just having even just a personable or just a polite gesture on your face really helps the athletes to calm them down instead of just full poker face.
Yeah. Being up there and they're, you know, head down the whole time, and they're not even interested.
Exactly. And honestly, if you look down and you're so nervous and you see someone smiling at you, how can you not smile? So I always just smile. I smile at all of them because sometimes people don't realize that they're not smiling, and we'll talk about that later, but smiling is so important when you're on stage. Everyone forgets it. So I figure if I'm smiling at them, how can they not smile back at me? And then it's going to help them anyway. They'll look like they're having more fun on stage.
And I love the fact that you guys are saying you're actually wanting to help people, because a lot of judges won't say those things and they're like, well, it's all on you. When you come out, you're the athlete and you need to do everything that we need. And you're like, well, it's really about the physique. I'm just trying to get you to smile to enhance that. And that one thing is letting you down and you've got an amazing body, that could lose you the show just because you
absolutely.
So it's great that now the judges are not only giving feedback to athletes, which we used to have when we all competed. It was like you didn't get feedback, or you had to like message a judge and go sit down with them, or like pay. There was a payment point at one stage. Which is not really that ethical either, you know. So I think that it's really cool that the way the federation has shifted. I would say the last probably 2.5, 3 years has been that change. So I guess from you guys, like starting out, let's get straight into it. Let's get straight into the divisions. We're going to talk more specifically about the female divisions today, and then Sean's going to get on one of the male judges in a future podcast to talk about bodybuilding. You guys both judge bodybuilding though as well, don't you? Or do you?
We do.
100%,
Awesome. And I guess like it would be interesting to even touch on like how similar is the male and female judging in terms of the actual judging criteria? Is that exactly the same scorecard that you're working with for both of those? We're
working with the same scorecard for everything. Obviously, we have different requirements that need to be met for every different category. So as a judge, you have to keep that in mind. Like obviously, bikini, like as you would know, would not be the same as bodybuilding. Bodybuilding is completely different. However, we do have the same scorecards that we do judge from. So
and that's the thing. Sorry, I was going to ask about there is if you have, say, a division like bikini, figure, and women's physique. So we're going to talk specifically about those three divisions today, which are the three divisions offered in the IFBB for females. Are they weighed differently? I mean, maybe I'll throw this one to Summer in terms of like how much you give for presentation, say in bikini, versus presentation in figure or physique, or is it exactly the same across the board?
Oh, personally, as we're told as judges, 100%, like the presentation is a huge part of it. I guess the way Michael explained things so well, and I did actually try to IG story a bit of it. He explained things so well. So with bikini, obviously, yes, you are basing a heap on your stage presentation with your posing. But I would say that still with figure, we still want the girls to look really feminine as well. Like that's a huge part. And then same with physique as well, because obviously the further you get along, the more muscle that you put on. Like sometimes it can be a little bit hard for the females, and we do base a lot of it still on their presentation and their overall look, because you want them to look feminine. So in order for that to happen, they need to have really good makeup, hair, everything, bikini choice, everything needs to be perfect. So I think that it's definitely as important across all three categories.
Absolutely. I do agree, and I'm the same. I think presentation is absolutely vital, and sometimes it's something that's forgotten, but especially, and I even think for boys as well, presentation is so important. But when it comes to girls, just like Summer said, like it's vitally important that girls focus on this, and not just for the points that Summer mentioned, but also looking at it from an outside and trying to promote our sport as a positive, healthy way of life, and also a sport. We want people to become involved, and we want all our athletes to look their best and present their best with their hair, the makeup, the everything, because it presents a nice feminine touch, and it gets rid of a lot of misconceptions as well in the industry on, girls shouldn't have muscle, this stuff and all that. So by presenting themselves in the best way they can with their hair, their makeup and all that as well, they're really putting a feminine package forward, and it just helps, again, promote the sport, but also, I don't know, I just think it's a really nice touch when you're proving misconceptions wrong as well. So, girls getting on stage with nice muscle bellies and all that sort of stuff, and they just look beautiful because muscles can be beautiful. So, I think it's really cool and very important as a judge, and it's definitely something we all look for.
Yeah, which is obviously why they removed female bodybuilding. Like they wanted to, because a few years ago, if you guys don't know, we used to have an actual female bodybuilding division, I think up until about 3 or 4 years ago. And then they scrapped that and they've got physique now because it was just getting so muscular and so unfeminine. And not to say that nobody liked that look. You know, there's a lot of women out there who aspire to look like that, which is fine. But it was bordering that line of, and we're not going to make this a drug or anabolics talk, but it was bordering that line of what you can do as a female naturally, because the IFBB isn't drug tested. That's not to say that there aren't tons of athletes up there that are drug free, like especially bikini competitors. So I think that the way that the federation's going, and I guess that's something like, obviously you guys can't touch on that too much, but a lot of bikini girls ask, can I do it? Can I win a pro card in the bikini division naturally? And like, I do want to ask you guys about that. What do you think on that topic?
Absolutely, and something I've always promoted. You do not have to take anything, especially in the bikini category and even in the figure category. And look, there are some girls that genetically build muscles so much easier and are more suited to physique. So anything is possible. It's just going to take a lot of time and effort and consistency and not rushing it. So I think a lot of people go down that avenue because they're either not in it for the right reasons, they want to do it super fast, they want to make it to the top straight away. Like you heard Summer say, it took her 6 years to get a pro card. Yeah. It took me 6 years to not even get a pro card. So it takes a long time and there's no shortcuts. So that's really, like, I guess all I have to say about that sort of question. So we don't make it, you know, that I guess about it. But
I do want to make that clear that any female listening that is in the ICN and is considering doing the IFBB, and that's the thing holding them back, like to not worry about that, because and
the coolest thing that I've noticed with these new changes and with IFBB Pro League coming about, a lot of people are actually, I guess because it's open to all athletes, a lot of people are actually not jumping ship from, like, say you said ICN, but they're actually giving it a go. So, and the cool thing is they're not being penalised from jumping from ship as well. But the cool thing is it's actually, you know, these athletes that never actually thought they could compete with IFBB Pro League can now. But I think we just keep all of us judges, whether it's male, female judges, coaches like yourself, all that sort of stuff, we just have to keep promoting that they can do it because it is possible. So, you know, if they just try hard and work at it day in, day out, they can make a really big dent even as a natural athlete. I know so many natural athletes that have now come over to the Pro League who are really high up there and have such amazing physiques. I think there was one girl in Queensland who actually won the overall who is completely natty. So, and it's really cool to see, and it's really nice to see our sport progressing and, you know, I guess, people taking those risks where I think back in the day they thought it was scary, so they weren't competing. So, I think it's cool. Yeah.
I guess there was 2 misconceptions about IFBB, like we're talking bikini particularly because that's the most popular division. But misconceptions were that you either need to get coached by one of the judges or you take drugs in order to win, which it's funny because one of my girls that won and did very well in her first ever time on stage and first ever time in the IFBB was Demi last season. Summer would have seen her in Perth and then you judged her at Nationals, and she was second to the girl that won her pro card and she won in Perth, and she's completely natural, first time ever on stage. You guys don't know her like you know me, but you don't know my clients. I don't send you photos and go, hey, look out for my girl on stage.
No.
That doesn't happen. Just to show how well she did from not knowing anyone, being a nobody, to come up. And that's what I think the IFBB is becoming now, and it was when I first started, and then it kind of had a few years there that we weren't such a fan of, we'll call it that, but now it's transitioning back into a really good place in Australia.
And the cool thing is with that too, and with I guess the new structure, I guess a lot of people are coming out of nowhere having never even competed before and are winning. And I think it's really cool because if you've got the physique, like, we're not going to penalise for you. If you look the part, and I don't care if you're a novice and you're doing open, if you look the part and if you're confident enough and you don't, I guess, act like a novice on stage, then if you're good enough, you're going to win. And that's the cool thing. Like, I think it was Ness, just to give you an example, like, she won her pro card, was it last?
Last
Arnold's, and I had no idea who she was. It wasn't until she became a pro and I was like, wow, she's got an amazing physique. And then I actually looked her up afterwards, and it was cool because I had no idea who this girl was. And she just presented this awesome physique in front of us and ended up winning. So, yeah.
I think it's fantastic, like the fact that that can be done. And she came from the ICN, and she was an ICN pro. And
I didn't even know that. That's cool. Yeah.
For that of coming across as well. And yeah, I think that the division, the way that the IFBB is going now, is heading in a really positive direction, and hopefully that will mean more pros. Then hopefully one day we'll get, you know, bikini in the Olympia or the Arnold's. Like that would be amazing. So I guess let's get into some of more so the questions specifically. So I might go like Summer go, MJ go, and then if there's anything to add, I guess, on that you maybe have a different point of view on, then jump into it. So I guess the first thing that I've been asked about probably the most is bikini and suit selection. Now, I know this is a big one. I know as a coach, I always pick my girls' bikinis, and I'm like, you're only allowed these 2 or 3 colors because they want this elaborate bikini. And I keep saying to them, like, elaborate isn't always the best. So I guess from a judging standpoint, let's go Summer first. What do you feel like are the key things girls need to think about when they're selecting their bikinis?
Okay, so totally you need to go with the colour that suits you. So it suits your hair and your skin tone. I guess you've got the tan on anyway, but that's what you kind of need to stick to. And there is the same colours that you tend to see up on stage all the time, which is like the green, the blue, and the red. And there's like, you know, a purpley blue.
Yeah.
And they're kind of the colours that you see on stage for a reason, is because they work so well. So you've kind of got to work with, I guess, what goes best with you. I would not be hung up on the fact, because I get it all the time, girls want to stand out. So they think that if they choose this bikini that is like yellow or orange or like a light pastel-y colour, like, you know.
I made that mistake.
Yeah, it's got nothing to do with it. So, I mean, the amount of times that you'll see a lineup and there's like all these girls wearing green and they're all the top places, it doesn't matter. So you just got to work with whatever suits you best, I guess. So with my girls, like most of the time they're either doing the blue, the red, or the green. Like that's
and they
the
get
choice.
So bored, don't they? I'm like, tough. You know,
and you just got to make sure that you find a very reputable bikini designer and make sure that your bikinis are done really well and fitted really well. One thing that Michael did bring up at our last seminar is the tops and how they're made for the girls, and some of them are going the more European
like the cut
look, with the cut, and it just doesn't work. So you've just got to make sure that it's all worked properly for you. You know, if you're not happy with your bikini, tell the person that's made your bikini, like, get it right, because it needs to work well. Same with the bum. It all just needs to sit really well.
Yeah, because with the cups, I've been chatting to my girls about that lately. I find that if you have no boobs, the cups can look good. But if you've got fake boobs or a bit of natural boob, they just look really top heavy. And obviously, IFBB bikini, it's about more so the lower body being accentuated and the upper body being more flattering in the bikini division, from what I know, obviously watching it. But yeah, I think that more the triangle cut with a little bit of light padding seems to be, it's what the pros, like, look at the pros, look at what they're wearing. Like,
exactly. And when it comes to the padding just has to do well as well. You don't want to turn to in your front pose, and if you're more side on, see all of this padding, you know, like, we don't want to see this. Like, it has to, you have to be really picky when it comes to your bikini and how it's all made, and, you know, don't be afraid to tell the person who's made your bikini that you don't feel comfortable in it, because you need to.
100%, especially if, like, obviously we won't talk about other federations too much, but the one big thing is if you're doing IFBB Australia as opposed to IFBB Pro League, it's a completely different look in terms of bikini. So make sure that your bikini maker knows what federation you're doing. Like, that is a big one. And that you say, this is what the pros are wearing, this is what I want to wear, and then she can work with your shape and then put that together. What about you, MJ? Any like do's, don'ts in terms of the actual suit selection?
I guess I'll start with giving a tip. I always have gone under the assumption that bikini should help your physique stand out, but not take over your physique. where the attention's on your bikini and not your physique. So I guess that's a good strategy to follow if girls are wanting to go extravagant with their bikinis. Just and as their coaches should go, look, it's a beautiful bikini, but it's just too much. There's too much going on, and it's distracting from your physique. Your physique should speak the most.
So out in a bad way, really, rather than
yeah, exactly. So I've always loved just the royal colours. So like your deep, like a forest green, your dark blues, your deep reds. I mean, we all have our favourite colours, but it's not going to determine like if I might hate the colour red, but I'm not going to go, I hate that red, so I'm going to mark that girl down. It doesn't work like that because, for example, Renee Garner, she looks amazing in red. I hate red, but she can pull it off. So there's no way I would ever mark anyone down for the colour of the bikini. But I do think it definitely puts together a full, complete package.
Yeah.
So I would recommend not going your baby blues, your baby pinks, or even hot pinks. I find sometimes it can look a little tacky like a Barbie. I know, like me being a blonde, like I never really suited red, so I'd never wear red. Go with I always say, whatever your eye colour is and whatever matches your eye colour is generally what's going to look good on you. So I've got brown eyes. I would always try to wear deeper sort of colours. Figure we can also obviously add lots of different colours in. Someone with blue eyes might suit like a deep blue or something like that. So I do love them, the plum mahogany sort of colours as well. I think they look really nice with the tan. But yeah, I definitely agree with what Summer said. I think those colours are popular because they just work. So that's why you see a lot of the Olympian girls wearing those colours. I think they all have their signature colours too. So I don't think you have to do that. Like you can definitely wear different colours every comp. But I know some girls like to stick to it. So if it works, then keep doing it.
Yeah, or if you get good feedback from a judge that was like, presentation was great, then like stick to that. You know what I mean? Like, or even your stage photos and comparing them, like it's always good to get that feedback. Because I think when we always compete, it was always like different bikini every show. Like
And when you used to do like 3 shows at once, you'd have 3 different bikinis. And
So not
I remember wearing a pastel sort of lime green colour, and it was so funny because during the break when they used to do 2 show formats, Aaron and I, my partner, we actually went and had a nap by a tree, and I ate some brownies and we just passed out and I woke up and I had the worst, I forgot to take my bikini off, so I had this worst tan line in the middle of my crack on this really light coloured bikini. I was backstage, people were trying to fix it, and it was just so funny. So when I was on stage flexing, all I could think about was, I hope they can't see that poo stained on my butt. So, pastel colours and light colours don't always work with it.
They're dangerous, yeah.
And don't fall asleep in them.
Yeah, I wore white. I remember for my first ever comp, I was like, I have really naturally light colourings. Like I'm not olive skinned. I have blonde hair, green eyes, and I'm like, I'm gonna wear white. Like the worst colour option. It had gold connectors. Like it was just horrible. I got it made by someone who didn't make like proper IFBB.
As you do when you do your first show, same with me.
And I rocked up and I was like, oh, mine doesn't really look like the others. And tan all over it, and was going I think in another comp the next week, had to quickly get one made because I literally just had a brown pair of bottoms by the end of the day. So that is why a lot of people don't wear white, because it's But awesome. So bikini suit selection, obviously the other thing to think about though, say to the girls, is also the connectors on the bikini. Do you guys have any, I guess, things that you say? I say the girls keep it simple. Again, don't want something
keep it simple, no dangly bits, I always say. And also make sure, what was that, Summer?
I would say thin, not the big, thick, bulky.
Yeah, agree. And always ensuring it's not a G-string, and it does cover, I think it's half there at the bottom.
Yeah, it's half to it. I thought it was a third, but maybe I'll have to double check.
Let me just double check that for you. So
I mean, the bikini,
I'll come back to you.
Should technically know if you say I'm doing IFBB, this is how much coverage, because I know in Australia we used to get away with like a third, but then you go international and they were like half, because I remember the world needed more coverage. So while you're checking that, I guess like summarizing in terms of like presentation, because I know this is a big thing for bikini, like the girls have all asked the same question. They're like, as a judge, what stands out the most when a girl walks out? What is like one of the number one things that you see? Is it the smile? Is it the walk? Is it the way they just generally carry themselves? Or is it the suit? Is it the physique? Like for you, Summer, what's the biggest things that you find really, really appealing?
Well, it's going to be pretty simple, to be honest. Like you, as a judge, we want to see the best version of you. So when you come out on that stage, you need to present yourself in that best light. So a lot of people, obviously, when they come to their posing and stuff, they will look at their favorite bikini competitor, say for your bikini, and they will be like, oh, I love the way she presents herself, I'm going to do that, and they'll copy everything exact. And you can't do that. You've got to present your physique in the best way possible. So we want to see your best symmetry. So if you come out on stage, obviously it's got a lot to do with eye contact with the judges. Personally, I recommend not taking your eyes off the judges the whole time you're on stage. So as soon as you come on, you are entertaining us. You are not entertaining anyone that's out there. Don't worry about them. You can talk to them after the show, but for the show, you need to be looking at us judges, interacting with us, and everything is for us. And you want to come out and just present yourself the best way possible. And that comes to symmetry, because I know we're going to get into the judging criteria, but that is really what we're looking at. So display your physique in the best way possible. If you do not know how to do that, you need to see someone to help you with your pose.
And it's very interesting, because I felt like I was getting the same question on Instagram of girls saying this constantly. It's like they're waiting for the perfect answer. It's like they're waiting to go, okay, as long as you smile, or as long as you do this first pose. It's not that simple, and that's what people need to understand. It's about the whole package. It's about putting something together that not only is your walk good, but your smile's good, but the first pose you hit is symmetrical, and that you're showing off to captivate them from that first position that you take on stage, rather than waiting and doing your best pose, at the end of your routine. Like, do it at the start so that you can get them engaged. So what about you, Emilie?
From the get-go. The first thing I look at, and I do find that a lot of judges do this, like it's very hard when they've just walked on stage. It's very hard to quickly judge their physique. The first thing we look at is their posing and their walk. So can they walk in heels is literally the first thing I notice, and how they walk and literally their posing. If anyone's ever been to the free IFBB posing workshops we put on, Michael Bunner, our head judge, he goes through this, and he actually lets all the athletes stay behind and listen in on our judging seminars, where he explains to them that the first thing we look at is their posing. It's not the physique. The physique comes maybe 2 seconds after, or 5 seconds after. It's that first initial entry onto that stage is how they actually present themselves. So that's why it's so important to go to those posing seminars, to hire a posing coach, and to get that sorted. You can have the most amazing physique, the best symmetry, but if you can't present it, and if you look nervous or anything on stage, it's not going to do any justice. And the best analogy I like to give is I tell my posing clients, or I'm not coaching this year, but what I used to tell my clients from previous years is, remember that judges are just like a horse. So horses can smell your fear from a mile away. And everybody knows that about horses. So if you imagine that we know if you're nervous, we can tell. So we can, if you're not smiling or anything like that, it's a given sign that you're nervous and that you either haven't practiced enough. Guaranteed, obviously, first timers are going to be nervous, but that's why it's even more important for them to practice their posing. So.
Yeah, 100%. Like I always tell my girls, I say the other way around. I go, imagine if you were a judge, what would you want to watch? And you're boring and you don't smile and you're looking at the floor, would you want to watch that? And I make them watch their posing videos back to themselves, and they're like, oh yeah, that was really boring. And I'm like, see,
exactly.
What's going on.
Yeah, and even when, you just said, like, a lot of girls look to the floor, or they get nervous, so they start to look down, or in between poses, when we say quarter turn, they'll look down first and then they'll look up. The thing is, when you start to look down, your natural curvature of your spine wants to hunch. So you're not doing your body any justice. You're not, sticking your chest out and being proud. As soon as you look down, you start to lose all that shape. So that's why it is important to always look at the judges, just like Summer said. A little tip I like to give clients of mine was, when you're posing, sometimes it can be a little nerve-wracking just looking at the judges and just staring at them because, again, they're the focal point. What I like to do is just skim over their head. So technically I'm looking at them, I'll give them a bit of eye contact, but I don't want to look at them the whole time because sometimes it can be a little bit scary. So I just look right over their head. Luckily for me, I'm short-sighted, so I can't really see the audience. So it makes it less daunting. But yeah, it's a little tip. You can just look at the judges, give them some eye contact, give them a little smile. Don't do any nice, murky little, I know a lot of girls like to look at judges and might shimmy or something like that. We don't want to see that. Yeah, just look at the judges and then just gaze over and then look back at them, then gaze over. So yeah,
you don't want to be also glaring at them
no, or that clown, that creepy clown look when girls just stare and it's like, I'm like, does her face move or so
line between smiling and being too aggressive with it and being confident. It's actually very hard. People think that it's, and I was actually chatting to Sean about it, my partner, and he goes, bikini is so much harder than bodybuilding. He's
absolutely.
You've got to look feminine, but you've got to look muscular, and you've got to look sexy. You can't look too sexy and
in heels and pretend like it doesn't hurt. Another little tip for even guys, if they're listening, to try and remember how to smile. You guys can try it. It's hard, but put your tongue at the top of your mouth and now try and close your mouth. You can't, see? So I tell people, and if anything, trying to do that on stage is going to make them laugh because they'll remember me having a joke with them. But that's a good way to, even for guys, because I know guys struggle to smile too, which is important.
Tongue
at the top of your mouth.
Yeah. That's even harder. That's what Sean was saying. I always tease him because he has this kind of creepy face when he's and his eyes pop out of his head, and I'm like, you need to relax this.
Yeah.
Try to relax your face whilst tensing your body, and it's the same even for females when you're twisting and trying to pull your shoulders out. So yeah, it's a lot harder than what people think, and this is why I guess I wanted to get you guys on to explain all this and say to people why it's so important to invest in either a posing coach or some feedback from the judges or whatever it is, because people can invest so much time and effort, say 20, 30 weeks in a contest prep, and then they don't do posing till the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Absolutely.
And they look awful on stage, but they've got this amazing body on Instagram, and everyone's like, oh, why didn't you win? And it's well, you weren't there to see what they
how you present it. Yeah. And another thing too, when you're first walking on stage is how fast you walk. So if you're walking too fast, it's another telltale sign of being nervous. What I like to say, and obviously for bikini, I find girls walk a little faster than figure. And I think that's because bikini generally has a little bit more sass. You don't want to be sexy on stage. It's not about being sexy, but you can show your personality and have a bit of sass. And in bikini, I feel you can walk a little bit faster. And to give girls an idea of figure, I would always pretend that the queen's watching. So classy, elegant, head held high, doing that little queen wave. And that's how you should walk on stage, a little bit slower than bikini.
So bikini's just throwing in a dash of Beyonce,
Yeah, exactly. Just a little bit,
Not too much, Or if you're super nervous, just think Beyonce, because I guess this also comes down to the personality. If I've got a girl posing with me who is super nervous, super timid, super small posing, everything's small movements, then I'm like, all right, Victoria's Secret catwalk, go. But if it's someone that's already like that, then you're going to be let's tame it back a little bit.
And also for posing coaches to take note of that person's personality, like you just said. So I get some girls that come to me and go, oh, I have to do this on stage and I have to be sassy and I have to do this. And I'm like, but I can already tell by your personality that you're calm, cool, collected. You don't need to do that. Let's just work with what you've got and how you present. Otherwise, if you're trying to be sassy on stage when you don't naturally do that, you're going to be very uncomfortable and we're going to be able to see it. So
I guess as a summary for people, try to be your most best self, which isn't the best English, but trying to present you. And I know that's going to sound weird because people are going to be like, well, what's you? And it's just a confident version of yourself that there's no one way of walking on stage. There's no one way of being sassy. There's no one defined amount of speed that you guys are saying that you have to walk out at. You're not judging someone and setting a timer and going, she took 4 seconds to get to the middle of the stage. So that is one thing I wanted to touch on, because I feel like I've been working with a lot of girls lately posing, and I'll do their posing routine with them. They'll go off on their own, they'll add 20 bits to it, and then they'll come back. And I'll be like, your routine went for 2 minutes. I was like, you got about 30, 45 seconds. So for you guys as judges, what is sort of, because I've been timing the girls just to kind of have a look at it.
Yeah.
What sort of do you feel like is a good amount of time to, I guess, spend on stage? Let's start with you, Sam, in terms of that.
Well, pretty much, I mean, the good thing about Tony is he's going to pretty much call the next person on stage if he takes it.
It's also Michael sitting in the middle going to Tony, let's go. So, but we do that and we stick to the time frame. So no one's there by midnight. We have to do that. So
that's it. And when you come on as well, one thing that Michael, I'm so glad that I had Michael last Sunday because all these things are instilled into my memory. So sometimes girls spend a little bit too long on stage, and they really shouldn't, because the longer you're on stage, the more time it gives us to pull you apart.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Remember is that first time you come out on stage and do your eye walk is when we are judging you the most. So at that point, that is when we sit there and we pick our top 5 or 6 girls that we want to come out in the first call out. Mm-hmm. So that is the time when you should be your absolute best. And it's hard because that's when you are so nervous as well. But this is when we are picking you apart. So if you're sitting there for ages and you are doing a front pose, turning around to back pose, you're walking to the back, you're turning back around, you're walking forward, like it gives us more times to pick you apart. So get out there, do your best poses, present yourself the best way possible, and get off. Like it is as simple as that. And it is really, it depends on person to person as well. And same with when we were talking before about your walk on. If you are not, and it's really hard for females to get as tight as possible in your lower half. So if you still have a little bit of jiggly bits, you shouldn't be walking out on stage fast. You should be thinking more graceful. Your steps should be lighter. I see a lot of girls walking and they're like heavy horse walks and their feet are coming right up. They're kicking their legs. Like you need to walk out gracefully. Gliding on stage. And I know the stage, you'll sit there and you'll practice in this tiny little space, like not a huge space. And then you see the stage and most of the time girls are running out on stage. Yeah. So you just got to remember to take things slow, count in your head when you do the poses. And if you are not tight enough in your glutes, you shouldn't be turning around and walking back. And then like you do have to walk back. Yeah. We do make you do that, but you just want to present yourself the best way possible.
So you're saying you don't need to do that in your routine. If it's
absolutely not.
Lagging area.
If it's a lagging area. And same thing if you are turning around to do your back pose, and because obviously in bikini you don't need to show us your back. If you just like show us your back and you don't have the muscle tone and everything there, you should be hiding it with your hair. Like, because we don't need to see that.
Well, Michael said to one of my girls, Nick, in Melbourne at the Melbourne seminar last weekend, she looks great and she's competed before, and so she wanted those fine details, and I said, ask Michael so he can feed back to me. And when she did a half transition kind of into her back pose, we moved her hair for the half turn but not for the actual back pose because she has a really nice back. And even her, who's lean and shredded, he was like, don't even bother. He was like, I want your hair down the whole time.
Yeah.
So it's like,
it just gives us more things to judge on, more things to pull apart, because as judges, that's what we're there to do.
And just on that topic, like a lot of girls have to get really lean for their glutes to come in. So it means like most girls, their upper backs get lean faster than anything else in their body. So if someone has to come in really lean for their glutes to come in, it means their back is shredded. So bikini girls have to remember that we're not looking for shredded bikini girls. Yeah. So if you were to show that, we would mark you down because you're not meeting the criteria. You would look out of proportion. So that's why Michael has probably gone, you need to cover that. So.
That's it. And then that would just be in our mind, like they might look great, but we might be like, oh, we've seen her back now. She's too lean up top. She's out of balance. You know, that's a huge thing is balance and symmetry.
Yeah, awesome.
When I used to compete, I hated my front pose. So I would come out, hold my front pose for half a second and then go straight into my side and back pose.
Yeah, same as you.
And that's like, you know, that's the beauty of doing the individual walk. You can hide your flaws and do your best poses. So it's not
like the new poses for bikini. Like when I did it, it was like you had to do that front pose.
Yeah.
Not super made my like quads look massive.
Yeah.
But, you know, now that you can turn side on or you can slightly rotate your hips or you can change all these little things, it's so much more variable and flattering for everybody's physiques, because I think before you had to be really genetically blessed in a lot of ways to go to that next level. Maybe not to win a state or whatever, but to get a pro card or win internationally, you had to have that genetically perfect structure. Posing wasn't variable, and figure, obviously the posing is more structured than bikini, so you do have the genetics come into play, and figure more so, I would say, than bikini.
Absolutely. And I think I love that individual walk, and I think we got a little off topic, but we were talking about, you know, timing and that sort of stuff. But the best thing about that individual walk is you can tailor it to your physique. So I always know that I was never one of the bigger figure girls. So I wouldn't try to overpose or be one of the bigger girls. I would show off what I did have. And from the side, I had a pretty small waist. So I'd always try and show that off. I'd always try and show off my back half, because that was always the better half of me. So that's the beauty of that. And some girls go, oh, but, you know, they're comparing us. They need to see all the poses. We don't. That's when you get into your comparisons. We'll see everything. So
yes, in summary, come out and don't spend too much time. Don't bother doing poses that don't flatter you. Pick your ones.
Get to it. And just to give an example on that same topic, when girls should really have a couple of different routines that they should practice, because and guys as well, but keep in mind that when we've got, say, like the Arnold's, and it's a massive show and there's hundreds and hundreds of competitors, you've got to be realistic and realize that you might not get as much time to do your individual walk. And that's just how it is. So last year, I think a few girls did have a little whinge because they're like, we practice our routines and we only got to do 2. Well, as an athlete, as a seasoned athlete, you shouldn't be complaining. That's just how it is. And like Summer has said, sometimes the more time you have on stage is not always a good thing. So if you are that good and your physique speaks for itself, you should be able to walk out, hit one pose and win.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my opinion. You shouldn't have to spend more time up there to convince us. We should just see it from the get-go. And you've got to realize, girls need to realize too, at the Arnold's, the head judge from America is coming over as well. And he's just like our head judge here, he can see the winner as soon as they walk on. Purely because of the way they're holding themselves, their physique. They're not they don't need to hide any flaws because they might just have it. So, and then what we do to confirm their opinion is when we do the comparisons. So,
exactly. So you can't really hide anything in the comparison rounds. What they're then doing in your comparison rounds is really see how you look next to another girl. You know, you might look great when you came out on your own, but then when we put you next to other girls, you look too muscular or you look too slim. All of that. So, and that's why when people see one photo from a show and you're not next to anyone and they're like, oh, my friend looked the best. And it's like, well, you need to look at it in that comparison division. So I guess anyone listening who's thinking about competing, who's never been physically to a show, go to a show, because it is totally different than seeing a few photos online that your friends pick their best shots and not their worst angles. And I don't mean that in a mean way, but it's in a realistic way. So that's definitely a big thing where I think people get pissed off on social media and they'll put these rants up about unfair judging, and it's like, it's not unfair judging, it's poorly understanding the division and what the requirements are, or the fact that maybe you didn't highlight your best features, or maybe that you didn't look at the girls that were winning and what they were presenting realistically.
It's hard for us too, and that's even another topic, but it's hard for us as judges too, because you know, leading up to the show, I actually don't really too much like to look on Facebook or anything, because I see all these amazing athletes coming up and they're doing things to their photos where they look bigger than they are or leaner than they are, and then they get on stage and I'm disappointed because I thought they were leaner. So, it's on stage, you can't hide anything, you can't Photoshop anything. It is what it is. So all people are putting up on their social media is how they look on that day, and some of the photos might be edited, whatever, or good lighting. It's nothing compared to what it used to be. So when their friends are like, oh, you should have won because you look like this, because they're looking at a 2-day out photo, it's really what they present on stage, and like you said, with other people.
Yeah, 100%. And even 2 days out, they might completely mess up their last 2 days of, like, if they're doing some crazy water load or cutting something out and then they come on stage flat, or you know, super, as a female, like malnourished looking in the face. About your facial beauty as well. And I guess that's probably one of my next questions to touch on. And I know it's going to sound mean, but like, how much does beauty actually play a role? Like, you know, are you looking at the face as a part of the judging criteria? I guess starting with you, is that something that you're looking at?
Yeah, definitely. But I think that would all come down to your makeup too, and the makeup artist that you choose. Like one of my hates is girls that like kind of, well, they've got like matching eyeshadow to bikinis. I think that's a no. Let's just put that one out there.
So she really bold, like all the way up to here. Yeah.
But yeah, if you've got a good makeup artist, I mean, like everyone should be okay. So I'm not, you know, like I'd hate to say, sorry, you're not.
And also too, who are we to define what's beautiful and what's not? So I think,
and I was saying that because I actually had a few girls message me and say, I don't think I'm beautiful enough to do IFBB. So they were almost, because they're seeing Miss Olympia and Angelica and Ash, all these girls look stunning on stage, they're thinking that that's what it is. But at the same time, if you probably saw those girls without makeup, without their hair done, they don't look like, they're still beautiful, but they're not, you know, what you're seeing on stage. So I think, like, don't let that deter you, but 100% it comes down to really good hair, really good makeup. Like, I remember one year I competed and I think I came second in Perth and Summer was judging. And obviously she didn't say anything on the day because she's professional, but she messaged me afterwards and she's like, your face didn't match your tan. She's like, your face was so white and I had to mark you down. So I was like, oh, okay, like, you know, so I was surprised with that, but it came into my judging that all of that needed to match.
Exactly. And back to your question, look, just to give you an example, if I saw a physique on stage, bikini figure, whatever it was, and I personally thought this lady was ugly, which I wouldn't, but imagine if I did and she had the most banging physique and she was going to win, she'd still win. I would not mark her down if I thought she was ugly.
And I think
who am I to judge her on that?
Like the femininity thing, like I think you may not be classed as the most beautiful on stage, but as long as you look feminine and you present that is, I guess, what they're looking for.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so the one that I really wanted to ask about in particular, and it's going to be a little hard to probably say this over a podcast, we might need to throw some images up online to go along with it, but the front pose is probably the one that the girls are getting the most confused about when I work with them from a posing standpoint. And knowing, because some girls obviously do the more typical front pose with kind of one leg back, one leg forward, waist rotated, and then the others are doing more what I would call, I guess, the side front pose where you're standing with your hips rotated, hand on the hip. So I guess from a physique standpoint, if you guys could explain this to athletes, why they would choose more so one pose or the other, what sort of physique shape do you think that would suit?
Summer, you want to go first?
I'll go first. Okay, so all right, I will use myself as an example. I, like you, Alice, are quite blocky. I don't have hips, right? So for me, I couldn't do the front pose with the twist. I've tried. It doesn't work for me. So with me, I would do more side on because it makes my waist look smaller. And you just got to look at yourself when you do those poses and look at your symmetry and your balance. Like, and that's how you kind of work it from there, really. Like, if you don't feel like that works the best for you, then go with the side. And a lot of girls are doing that side pose now.
So when you say symmetry and balance, obviously me and MJ understand, but what do you mean by that when you say symmetry and balance for someone looking at that pose? Balance between like upper, lower?
Yes. So we look at it at all angles. So we would look at it like if you split someone in half vertically and horizontally. So you would look at how the width of your, I'm like pointing to myself, but I know no one can see.
We'll have to put out some photos.
Like your shoulders and your glutes, like the size.
Can I just pause you for a second? While, if anyone is listening while we're talking about this, just go on to the ifbbproleague.com.au. Go to the, I'm just on there now, go to the rules and then click on the links for each federation. You'll be able to see what, or even read what Summer's talking about, but also there's pictures that you can see on there as well.
Well, have they got the two different front poses on there?
They've got the side pose and the back pose, but there's also a video at the top.
Yeah, cool. Maybe we need to ask Michael if he can stick a couple more front poses on there.
Yeah.
That would be good.
Just have a look at the...
So yeah, it's really going to come down to, like, you know, everyone's physique is so different, but we just really like judge on your symmetry. One thing that Michael said the other day, which is so good when it comes to bikini. So he tells us all to imagine that the girls they've got a sheet in front of them and then light coming from behind. So when we're looking at the girls, we want to see their shape. So that you want to see that perfect shape. We don't want to see any of the lines or cuts or separation within their muscles. So think of that as a bikini and in terms of your symmetry and stuff as well.
Awesome.
And when it comes to, I guess, that as well, like for bikini and posing those front poses, like I've already used myself as an example, but again, like I can be a little blocky when I stand front on. So I wouldn't, if I was doing bikini myself, I wouldn't do the front on pose. That's actually a lie. I do that because even when I ever competed with figure, I would always pose like a bikini girl because I thought it was more feminine. So I would do the front on, but I would do a big twist. The only thing with that is my quad would hang out the front, and that's okay in figure. Wouldn't do that in bikini. But when you're looking at bikini and trying to determine whether you want to stand front on or do the side front pose, comes down to how small your waist looks. And back to that silhouette that Summer was talking about, you always want to have almost like a V taper, not like a figure girl though. I always imagine an upside down triangle as their body. So broader shoulders, obviously not too broad. You just want rounded shoulders for bikinis. But imagine shoulders with an upside down triangle, and that's their waist. Tiny little waist out at the glutes again. And that's what they should imagine. So everything should be, like I always just envision that like a little piece of artwork. So that would determine their front or side pose. So if someone looked really good from the front, who wasn't too heavy in the quads, who could still stand in a front pose and still have a smaller waist, that'd be awesome. But if someone was a little bit blocky front on, then I would stand side on, focus on my glute. If I had bigger quads, I would probably stand side on so I could hide that and focus on my glute a little more. Really depends on the actual individual athlete.
Yeah, I think that's kind of general gist of what I would do with the girls. I also think about what their upper body's like, because if I've got a girl who's got small shoulders and big legs, there's no way I'm getting her to stand front on, because she's going to then look super narrow, massive here, and it's not going to give her any taper. But I've got one, I'd say like 80% of the girls that I put on stage don't do that front pose. Like there's not many that can actually get away with it. I've got one this season out of my 5, and that's because she has quite skinny legs and nice shoulders, and she's just small overall. She's a petite girl. So she can do both of them and it works. But really, like most girls that train are going to have some quads on them and probably have more of an athletic shape, call it. So if you've got that athletic shape and not that kind of hourglassy curve, then it's probably not going to work. But yeah, so awesome. So that's front pose, I guess, what they're looking for there. Do you guys have any issues with the front pose where they are putting their hand in terms of front hand, back hand, on the hip, on the waist?
Totally. I mean, you don't want to put your hand too much on your waist that you take away how small your waist is. Like if you've got it right in the middle, sometimes it can take away. So it would be more so on your hip.
Yeah.
But then go down. It depends on the lines.
It does depend, like, because you don't want to hide that innermost part where your physique goes in. However, it can also work in reverse, because if you, let's say you do have a blockier waist, and this is maybe more for figure girls standing side on or whatever, you can actually put your hand there to hide that you have a blocky waist. So it depends on the individual athlete.
Yeah, so, I actually listened to, I think it was an NPC judge I was listening to the other day when I was doing some research, and he said it depends on the leg length of the athlete as well, and the torso length. So he was saying, if you've got a super long torso, don't actually put it down super low, because it's going to lengthen your torso.
Absolutely,
your legs. But if you've got obviously like short torso, like longer legs, then maybe bring it up a little higher. So it was quite interesting. So I guess, looking at waist width as well as leg length, as well as comparative to torso, comparative to shoulders, like you've got to think about everything, it's a lot.
And on that topic too, like you have girls that are bikini, but they are a little bit more muscly. And then you have girls that are bikini that might not have much muscle. So some girls get confused on how we would judge that. Do we choose the musclier one, or do we choose the smaller muscle one? Like, and again, it comes down to how they present, how they pose, and how they look compared to everybody else. But there are obvious competitors that I've done posing with where I'm like, wow, you are borderline too muscly for bikini, but there's no way in hell you would meet the category for a figure girl. So what you need to do is don't flex don't hold everything tight and try to flex your muscles while you're on stage, because you're going to look bigger than these other girls. Whereas a girl that's smaller, I might go, all right, you needed to keep it on and turn it on the whole time because you need to actually look not bigger, but you need to look a little bit more fuller than these girls that are coming in bigger, just so you don't look so out of place. So keep that in mind. Yeah,
that's a really important point. Absolutely. Like I notice in particular when I have girls who come across from ICN who are more so ICN fitness models, which is a similar somewhat look to our bikini in terms of the leanness and everything. And they're very like shoulders out, arms out, and I have to say like constantly like drop your arms because
exactly. I'm not a fan of the when they do that hand out and it looks like they need a walking stick or they're going to be a penguin. Like I just can't handle that.
No, I can't either. And I actually find it hard to actually teach people that pose because obviously like I coach in different federations and it's hard to transition between them. But awesome. So I think that's really good feedback. Like know your physique, know how much muscle you're carrying, and your coach really should be the one telling you that. Or a posing coach. Really, like a good coach, in my opinion, covers all bases. They should be able to tell you how you should be posing and all of those things. Maybe not be your posing coach, but at least be telling you, okay, you need to make your shoulders look smaller, or you need to make this look bigger, accentuate this, accentuate that. Okay, awesome. So let's touch on, now I've talked a lot about bikini, but the differences between figure and physique.
Okay, so figure you're obviously looking for, and I'm just going to make sure I have this right. Where are we? Okay, so figure you obviously want a V taper, and I guess a body that emphasizes balance and symmetry. We don't want excessive muscle separation, and we only want a small amount of muscle separation. So that means tight glutes. You can have a bit of separation between the hammies and the glutes, but you don't want it to be excessive where we see striations or that, how some girls can get that graininess. We don't want to see that in figure, and we don't want to see any thickness in muscles. Like you should still have those tiny proportions with your, your waist, like ankles, knees, all that sort of stuff. I think the way I like to phrase it is small joints. And I don't even know if that's a real thing, but it's the only thing that I can help people to visualize what I'm trying to get across. But you just don't want excessive muscle. You are starting to become borderline physique. So, to reiterate, bikini physique women, they want a striated physique. So you can see those lines. You can see, the separation between some muscle. You just don't want it to be that of a bodybuilder.
So in terms of like where you hold muscle, is there any big differences there, or are they still looking for the same sort of shape?
Well, so in my opinion, the shape, the symmetry, I always find is the same across the board. It's, the top half matches the bottom, the left matches the right. But when you come to physique, you have, I guess, you're bigger, your muscles are bigger than figure. So I don't know how to explain it, but I guess because you're focusing on poses that are actually flexing. So, with figure, we're not doing those, front double bicep, back double bi, or any of your other poses. So there's no real emphasis on that, muscularity in that regard, where we need to see every fine little detail. And I know it's so impressive. And I know back in the day doing figure, we used to do those poses. So I really love them. And it's so cool to see a girl's back pose because they get so lean in the back and seeing all those muscles, but that is for physique. Again, sometimes going back to, bikini, how we mentioned you would flex and not flex it depending how much muscle you had. If you were someone who was top heavy as a figure competitor and you knew that, your back was always leaner than your bottom half, that's where you shouldn't overpose as well. So then I even remember as a figure competitor, I didn't actually train back. I stopped training back for 2 years just so my legs could catch up. And that just comes down to genetics because, I've always trained back since I was 14. And that's all I used to do in the gym. So I really had to tone it down to make my physique more balanced. So does that answer your question with the difference between physique and figure?
Yeah, and I guess I think people think that the symmetry is different, but it's more just a case of how much you're flexing in those poses as well. Because even if there's bikini chicks that if you stuck a figure suit on them, they'd probably hold their own up there if they were and flaring and maybe built their legs up a little more, but their upper bodies might actually have enough mass for it. They're standing there in a more relaxed stance. So again, then looking, if you're a bikini competitor and you're not sure if you should then maybe transition to figure, then like the big things to look at would be, stick a figure suit on, do some of the figure moves, and
exactly. A cool example to give is, you know, you look at your Olympians, and some girls get confused with figure because of the Olympians and go, but you can see their striations, you can see this, but if you look closely, they're not grainy.
No.
Like there was one, I think, Olympian that didn't get marked as highly because she was grainy and, you know, it was too much detail. She was too hard looking. Yeah. And I think she even put up that feedback and she took it on board really well. And that's what a professional athlete should do, even an amateur athlete. But it was really cool for her to share that feedback, because a lot of Australians look at those girls and go, okay, well, that girl, she came in hard and shredded and grainy. We need to look like her for figure. But really, she's been marked down, but they don't, like, she shared that information, which is awesome because we don't often see what feedback they get. So when you look at the top girls, they're not grainy, they're not, you know, they don't have excessive muscle. And the best example to give you is the two winners. So what have we got? We've got Shanique Grant for physique. And is it Sydney Gillen that just won the figure? They, like, when you've not got them next to each other, they might seem like, oh, you know, some people might go, oh, that figure girl's close to physique. When you put them together, you'll see the difference and the detail on Shanique Grant compared to a figure girl. So
even like,
I think,
like a bikini girl like Justine Munro, like Frida Paulson, and then stuck them next to someone. Probably not, but
and if you actually look down on the Olympian girls and you look at the winners and then you go and look at maybe 8th, 9th, there are some girls that are really hard and a lot bigger. They have clearly not won against those girls, and this is such a not heated topic, but such an important thing to remember, that as a judge, we can only judge what's on stage on the day. So let's pretend we get all competitors and no one's in shape. Someone still has to win. And they might not even meet the criteria. They still have to win because they look better than all the other ones that didn't meet the criteria. So we can't just say, all right, there was 10 competitors on stage, no one meets the criteria, no one wins. We can't do that. And that makes it hard, because if you do get, let's say we get 10 girls, they're all really muscly, they might all be sort of borderline physique. We can't, again, say, no one wins. We still have to choose the best looking one. And just, it might happen to be that the best looking one still might be more muscly than the other girls. So where some people get confused, they go, oh, they're going for a harder, more muscly looking figure this year. So then everyone else tries to beat that, do things to change their physique to beat that look when they don't need to. It's just what was presented to us on the day.
And that's a really good point for bikini as well, because I know that was happening for a while, where the girls were just getting more and more shredded because they were seeing people do well. And then all of a sudden we had Ness win Arnold's, and there was a big uproar. And everyone was having a sook about it, like, no shade to Ness, but it was because, and I asked a few of the judges, and I was asking a few people, I said, why did you pick her? Like, genuinely just asking. I was there watching, and I thought she looked good. But she had an even presentation. Her makeup was good, her hair was good, her suit was good, her skin tone was great, all of these things. And there was other girls up there that, might be more shredded, might have had more muscle, whatever. But then they had, like a few of the judges were saying, acne or things on their back or skin or hair or or they weren't smiling or and again, like, there's it's that fine line in bikini, because even Ashley was like shredded this season, and then she came like 5th or 4th.
Exactly, and that's because in bikini, you know, we don't want to see a six pack, we don't want to see veins, we don't want to see that full leanness, because that's not what, I guess, is what we're looking for in bikini. But and it's the same for some girls who do come in shredded or lean, or they, you know, thinking that they do look like a pro or anything like that. Like, they have to understand that you're still an amateur, so there's always going to be something that you can work on. And I think Amy Fox, one of our judges, has brought up a really good point about this. And you know, although someone might have won their pro card on the day, it's because they were the best on the day compared to everyone else, and they've beaten all the other winners. But they've only just become a pro. They're still technically an amateur. They've just crossed that line. Now they've got to work even harder to bring their standard up to that pro level.
Yeah.
Because they've only just turned pro. We can't expect them still to be 100% perfect. They might be 99% perfect, but they're still got to work hard to get to that, to be competitive as a pro.
Yeah, exactly. And then you look at someone like Angelica, who's obviously killing it in bikini. And
Yeah.
and everyone's like, oh, she could be a little leaner or she could be this. And it's like, well, she's winning. So that's
Yeah, exactly.
like, look at who's winning, you know, look at who's in America. If they wanted leaner, they would have picked Ashley. So
Yeah.
I think always, like you said, and Michael says that and Tony says that, look at who Miss Olympia is at the time. That is what we want. And if you consistently go for that in your country, don't think, oh, no, Australia wants a leaner look or Australia wants it. Not that. It's exactly what you said. Of it depends who's there on the day. And it's like picking apples from oranges sometimes on a judging panel, especially as an amateur, because like, in all fairness, it's an amateur show. You're not going to have 20 amazing physiques up there. You might have 3 or 4 in the mix of 30. Yeah. Whereas on a pro stage, everyone looks amazing, and then it's just little things like
And I guess the cool thing moving forward and what we're trying to achieve and what Michael, our head judge, is trying to instill in us as judges is a couple of things, a lot of things actually, but focusing on choosing someone who looks the most like a pro, so that when they become a pro, they can be competitive.
Yeah.
So, and I know that I said, like, although that person is still an amateur on the same day as turning pro, they're both really. Yeah. They still got to improve. But the thing is, that person still needs to be the most pro looking on that stage.
Yeah.
And the cool thing was seeing that at the all-female classic when Renee Garner won, she looked like a pro, and it was impressive.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it was really cool to see some of the girls take on the feedback and be realistic with themselves as well. So we tell everyone that we want you to look for a pro physique, look at the pro physique, and that's what you want to look like. So for every category, girls also need to be realistic with themselves and be true to themselves, because a lot of people don't look like pros, but because their friends build up their egos and all that sort of stuff, they think that they start looking like a pro.
Yeah.
So, and that's not to be mean to anybody or single anybody out. It's just the truth. When you compete, when you compete, you just have to deal with the truth. You're up there to get judged. So they need to realize that they might think they look like a pro, but then you get someone else that makes them not look like a pro when they're next to each other. So they can't complain when they go, oh, you told us to look like a pro, but I didn't win.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, if you did look like a pro, you would have won.
Yeah. And I think you have to be in this sport, you've got to have a thick skin and you've got to be hypercritical, because people that do the best aren't the people that win every single show right off the bat. Not often. That's very rare. It's the ones that, like all of us, had to work our way up. And even though me and MJ aren't pros, we have placed top 10 internationally and all those things. But I remember when I started and everyone was like, you're too skinny, build muscle, okay, you look unhealthy, okay. Things. And I took that on board and took years off to do that. Whereas the girls nowadays, the big problem I see in the IFBB is they're getting feedback to put on muscle or come in looking healthier or fuller, and then they show shredded and then complain about not placing. And it's like, are you not listening? The judge said, build some muscle, because that's how a pro looks with 4 or 5 more kilos of muscle on you.
Yeah.
As a coach, my biggest advice to girls is take an off season and come back and impress the judges, even 2 years, rather than going, I'm going to take 3 months off.
Yeah, and that depends on the athlete. I never had an off season, so I can't, I absolutely relate to you in that regard, because some athletes need it. Yeah. I never did, because I think I was under the impression that I just loved competing. I loved doing the prep, and more so than being on stage. But I think a lot of girls forget why they start competing in the first place, and they're just driven to win. It's awesome if you win, trust me, but you shouldn't be doing it your first few shows at least to win. You should just be wanting to do the experience to see if you like it. But a lot of girls have to be realistic and, I guess keep going. But I can't even remember what I was talking about now. I've just completely gone off.
No expectations, really.
Yeah, expectations, that's it. Yeah, having those expectations. So
be the best version of yourself. Go in there, if you have competed before, to beat your last self.
Yeah.
And, that's all that you can really focus on. even the year that I went and I got my pro card, I was never like, I'm going to get my pro card. It just wasn't in my head. I just went in there to be the best version of myself and focused on myself. A lot of people, and I understand, like, it's hard with social media, like they compare themselves to other girls and how they're looking and stuff. And that's the worst thing you can do for your mindset, you know?
I'm so glad Instagram wasn't around when we like started competing, because it would have been awful.
Oh,
I went off
it
Facebook
was.
because it was only Facebook for the whole time I prepped. I just didn't even go on.
Yeah.
And I've had 2 girls in the last year, lovely girls, and I hope they are listening to this, but have pulled out of comp because they've been comparing themselves to other girls, and girls with great potential and physiques that I know could go far, but they're young and they maybe just take a little bit of time working on that mindset behind it and sort of
Exactly.
but they've got in their own way, in their own heads, from going, oh, well, this girl's 6 weeks out and I don't look like that. And it's like, we've got to remember that she might come in too lean and that you might be on track. Like, just because someone's ready 6 weeks out, it doesn't mean they're going to win a show.
Exactly.
It's all about peaking at the right time. So,
and it's the same when I competed. I competed when I think I just turned 23 when I did my first show. So back when my first show, there was no novice category, so I had to go in the opens. And but being 23, I was actually in the gym since I was 14. So people don't realize how long you've been training for. So I had people go, wow, how did you come third against these girls that have been competing all the time when you've never competed before and you're only 23? And I'd be like, well, I've been in the gym like for a very long time, but also I didn't just wake up 12 weeks ago and want to do this. I woke up 2 years ago and planned this. I didn't just wake up and do a 12-week, challenge and then go, oh, I'm going to go on stage. Like, this was thoroughly planned out. So people don't realize what's going on in the background or how much effort you've actually put in or someone else has put in.
Yeah, and I think that's probably an interesting topic to finish on, because a few girls had asked, you know, how do you know when you're ready to compete? Which I thought was an interesting question, because I was like, it's kind of a loaded question. Like, so I guess maybe we'll finish off with that on how we each approach when you're ready to compete.
Yeah.
So I guess, I would say it's, are you doing it for the right reasons? Number one, what are your reasons for competing? Is it that you're trying to see how far you can push your physique and what your body's potential is, and you're doing that for you? Then that would be a reason to compete. A bad reason would be because your boyfriend just broke up with you because you want to lose weight. That's probably the worst reason to compete. I just want to lose weight. That's not what competing's about, because I can guarantee you'll rebound. Or you'll not be okay with gaining weight post-show, which is what you have to do. So
I think as a good coach, and I think I've actually, I don't know if you've told me you do this or someone has told me to do this, but it is something really important to do. But, you know, some people might come to you and go, I've just broken up with my boyfriend. I need to make him jealous. I want to compete. And although we know it's probably not the right reason, some people have to make these choices for themselves. So you guide them and go, look, personally, I don't think that's the best reason for, you know, doing a show. You're probably going to have some negative or adverse effects from doing it that way. How about, here's all the information. This is what you would need to do. Think about it. Come back to me in maybe a month or so. And if you still want to do it then okay. Because to them, that is the right reason at the time.
And you can shut that down. Like, you want
but they might not be aware that how much is involved, how it's going to change their life, all that sort of stuff. I've had girls in the past have horrible relationships with food and want to do comp because they think discipline might help them with whatever, you know. That's someone where I would just say straight up, and I'd be like, no, I don't think you're ready to do a show. It's funny though, they'll go and just go to some other coach who will coach them and take money, which is sad. But I think when you're actually a health professional, and just, you know, you've had experience, but you're also an exercise professional as well. And I'm not talking just a Instagram famous coach. I'm talking about full qualified professional coaches. You care about the health of that client. So quite often I will turn clients down because I go, look, either I don't have the time for you to give the attention they need, or I think that you're not ready and I really think you just really need to assess. Maybe the best thing to do is just do either some photos to see if you like to diet for 6 weeks, or you know, do a little challenge with your family or friends just to see how you go with dieting. I know before I ever competed, I looked in photos, some professional photos, and I did I think it was a little 8-week mini prep myself to see if I actually liked dieting and to see how I'd like, you know, having a regime and all that sort of stuff. I just so loved it. But some people might not. So
yeah, that's something I do with girls that, like, say, have a bigger weight loss journey, and I don't want to deter them because they may have potential and may have nice genetics. And I'm like, sure, if you drop 30 kilos, you could look fantastic. But it's still such a long way away that we kind of need to set these shorter term goals. And I'll do the same thing. Let's diet for 10, 12 weeks and do a mini diet, so to speak, and see how you enjoy it, how you look. And I had a girl that I did that with. We did 2 phases of dieting. Maria, a little shout out. And then at the end of it, she goes, I don't want to compete anymore. She goes, I love the way I look and I don't want to take it to that next extreme. And I was like, great, you know, like, that's awesome. But so I think, yeah, get to knowing when you're ready to compete. The other big one I always say to people if they're doing it for, in my mind, maybe the wrong reasons, is I just tell them all the financial costs. I'm like, okay, so my coaching is expensive for contest prep. It's going to be this amount. And for a good coach, you're looking at least, you know, 80, 90 bucks a week minimum for a good coach, probably around the $100, $150 mark. They're doing everything in terms of nutrition, training, posing, all of that. That's what you're spending on your coach. Now, if you're going to go pay a coach 50 bucks a week, it's probably going to be $50 results, which means they're going to have 30 athletes and not really care about you because the coach needs to make a living. And you've got your bikini, which is maybe $400 to $600. You've got your entry fees to say the Arnold's is quite expensive. If you're going to do that show, it's $250, $300 bucks. If you're flying to a show, tan, hair, makeup, there's another $300, $400. You've got, if you're needing to do waxing, any of those pre-prep skin things, what else? Supplements, your food, the time.
And working at the same time, like, you know, even as a professional athlete in Australia, we still have to work. Like a lot of professional athletes in America might have amazing sponsorships where, you know, all they have to do is get paid to train, and that's amazing. But being realistic, it's not really something that you can achieve in Australia, unfortunately. And you can still get amazing sponsorships, but it's so important to just remember and be realistic if you are looking at getting into competing. Work, relationships, family, although it's hard for it to make them come first, they come first no matter what. Like, if you're not working, you're not paying the bills, you can't live, you can't pay your coach, and you can't, you know, even afford to go and compete. These are the most important things. So, and I understand that sometimes family and friends can take a little back burner when you're doing comps because you're so focused, but to be honest, they really shouldn't. So, I think it's hard to have balance when you're competing, because I always said, like, if you have balance when you're competing, you're not working hard enough. But you can still have realistic balance and be realistic with your expectations and what you actually want to get out of comps. I've also had girls, and this is going back to your original question, I've had girls go, well, I just want to become Facebook famous, so I'm going to do a comp because that's what everyone else does.
Yeah, it'll boost my business.
And then I literally have to sit there and break their hearts and just say, I'm sorry, but probably not going to become famous from competing. If anything, people are going to think you're too muscly and probably work in the reverse. So
or the opposite, you know, you might be more of a skinny Instagram model who thinks they can slap on a bikini and
exactly.
I think competing for the right reasons, understanding the costs involved, the commitment involved, because and also that you're in the right mindset about it, because I've also had girls that have maybe started prep or wanting to prep, but I've had as a coach, and this is where I've learned as a coach to really screen my clients for competing, because I've had past have been extremely draining on me emotionally, and I try to not take on my clients' emotions, but to the point where every single week and they're checking it's negative. It's like, I can't do this, I want to give up, I just want to go eat. And it's like, there's a point in which you need to be self-motivated intrinsically to go, I'm doing this for a reason, I've committed to it, I'm financially.
And to be honest, everyone that competes should be self-motivated.
Yeah, they shouldn't rely on their coach to shuffle them along every morning. And
that's the difference, in my opinion, to a lifestyle sort of client compared to a, comp prep client or something like that. You know, they should be self-motivated. Yes, at times you might need to reinforce them or, get rid of a bit of doubt that they might be having or anything like that. But they shouldn't rely on you as a competitor.
Yeah.
Like it's different when there's someone who knows nothing about exercise or dieting or training and really needs you to teach them. That's different. Absolutely. But if you're an athlete or competitor and you're competing, like, you really should have the love for fitness and nutrition originally, because if you don't, you're going to hate it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a grind every single day. As much as prep's hard enough without not enjoying the journey, like you're going to have your days where you're hungry and tired. And like I always say to my clients that you're going to have to embrace the suck, like embrace it for what it is and push through it rather than thinking, I always say, don't think you're a special snowflake. The other 20, 30 people on stage have done the exact same thing for 30 weeks.
And don't complain, because
the choice.
It's your choice, but also I've always been under the impression that competing is a privilege.
A luxury, yeah.
It's a luxury. If you can afford to compete, that's awesome. Just remember, there's starving children in the world that don't get 5 meals a day. So don't you dare complain that I get really heated about this topic, but don't dare complain about something that you've chosen to do, because no one's holding a gun to your head. So
yeah, I think that what also people need to do is look at make sure they have a foundation first before they even think of competing.
Yeah.
Like, how long have you been weight training for? How well are you in terms of nutrition? How good is your health? How well is your digestion? Like, there's so many things that you need to think about and have working well in place before you even think about doing a prep.
Yeah, have you
there's
got
so much. Yeah, there's so much behind the scenes. Like, you know, it's not just as simple as get lean for 12 weeks. Like, you need to make sure that you're eating enough food so you have somewhere to go. You're not belting out cardio 5 days a week. Like, there's so many different aspects before you even think about it. Like, you need to have like a proper off season before you even do a prep.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and exactly what I did a post up about yesterday on Instagram, will be a week ago, about one of my clients, Ash, is a lot of girls aren't willing to spend that time eating, 2,000, 2,500 calories more in order to build a physique, and they're coming to you and they're like, I look good, I just did a 12-week Maxine Burns challenge on 1,200 calories and cardio every day. And yeah, you might look good, but where are you going to go in that prep? Like, now
prepping is lifelong. Like, you should be able to do like a lot of shows and not burn out.
Yeah.
Although, some people do need an off season. Although I don't personally agree with it myself, because I always felt like I did better if I didn't. But a lot of people need an off season. But yeah, it's just important because you've got to have that break. So.
And even like an off season, I encourage off season my clients from a financial standpoint as well.
Yeah.
Telling me they're stressed about money, but then they want to do another show, and I'm like, what? You want to be Arnold's and fly to Melbourne? And like, you're already stressed.
People get tunnel vision, don't they? Like, I find that a lot with competitors, is they have that tunnel vision and all they're focused on is that end goal, and then they totally forget about everything else that's so important in their life.
Yeah.
Think about life.
The amount of like relationships you see break up, or like friendships that get forgotten about. And I think bringing this back to kind of sum it up is like, we've all done a fuck ton of shows in our time, and like, I think like I don't regret it, because I did the same the first few years I didn't have an off season. I think 2.5 years back to back I did like 10 or 11 shows or whatever, and then took a break. But I took the break more so from the standpoint of health. Number one, my health was starting to suffer, and I had lost my period for 2 years, and I didn't feel great. And my business was, I wouldn't say struggling, but I wasn't enjoying my business because I was tired all the time, and clients could see that, and I wasn't showing up to be the best I could in other areas of my life. So
I think a lot of people are under the assumption too that competing can't be healthy. And although competing is an extreme sport, I think a lot of coaches need to stop coaching, for one. But some of them they really need to instill in, like, you can do comps healthy, all right? Like, and the thing is, if you just stay healthy while you compete, you'll enjoy it more, and you'll be able to do more shows as well. So you're less likely to burn out and that sort of stuff. I always think, like, and I know that you do this as well, Alice, but, just focus on health, and indirectly clients are going to get lean as well. So, if a client's healthy, they're going to get lean. Like, and that's so important.
Like, I guess I probably differ with you on the point of health comps being healthy, because I would probably say at like the final stages, it may not be, especially if you're getting someone peeled, like someone to that next level of lean, like say a bodybuilder, a women's physique competitor, maybe not. For bikini,
I do agree with you on that one.
For bikini though, I agree with you on that.
Well, what I mean is, health obviously encompasses so many things: mental health, spiritual health, all that sort of stuff. And in those last weeks, you know, there is a fine line. I do think, you know, when you come to figure and bikini, you can. But yeah, just like you said, but I think I'm talking about the whole prep, whereas that last week or the lead up into it might not be healthy practices.
Yeah.
But I think as coaches, we do need to promote that overall, say over 16 weeks or however long they're competing for. Healthy practices is really important.
I think not stupid practices. Like,
That's it, not stupid.
The way I see it is really, it's not that unhealthy, because the way I compare it to is a triathlete. And if you look at a triathlete, they train for 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5 hours a day. I used to date a triathlete, and he would train, sometimes for 4 hours on a Saturday morning and then 2 again in the afternoon. And he would, eat a decent amount of food, but still I don't think it was enough to fuel his results, and he was very lean. So really, in the final few weeks of prep, if someone's doing weights and maybe a small cardio session day or whatever, and they're eating, say, 1,500 calories, it's still actually not that unhealthy if you compare it to someone doing like one of those diets, like a cleanse or a shake diet.
Exactly. Or someone who just doesn't eat and just drinks and smokes.
Yeah.
So who are the first people to judge?
Yeah, but again, we think of optimal health, I guess, in a bigger sense of, you know, eating a lot, nourishing the body, not overtraining. So, exactly what you were meaning before. It is still healthy from a coaching standpoint. Don't ever let any coaches manipulate you into dumb shit in that last few weeks.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's, I think, what I meant to say. You know, don't be under the assumption that just because you're going to compete that you have to do unhealthy practices.
Yeah, like I remember my first ever prep. We'll finish off. What's the dumbest thing you've ever done in prep? I reckon Summer's got a few good ones. But I reckon I got told I could only drink distilled water for the last 2 weeks before getting on stage for my first show. Did that one. And then I also could only eat asparagus, cabbage, and broccoli, and I have severe IBS. So
I was pretty lucky. I did have a great coach. My coach helped me to get my period back. Yeah. So I never lost it when I was competing, which is pretty cool. But I do remember waking up at like maybe 1 a.m. because I had to eat this horrible clay at like midnight on an empty stomach. I don't know, gut health thing, whatever. Yeah. I didn't, obviously, but I'm just like, now I look back, I'm like, wow, oh my God.
Yeah, even some of the supplements, like just so many sups, like obviously like not drugs, but like just the mountains of supplements.
Yeah, dietary supplements,
like, 100 fish oil and like, you know, cut out salt 2 weeks out and like just ridiculous.
And that's the thing, I never cut salt and I never cut water. I used to get competitors that I'd compete against. And they'd be like, I'd be drinking water backstage and they'd be like, oh my God, I'm not allowed to drink water. I haven't had water for 2 days. Why are you drinking water?
Yeah,
I'm like, well, and then you end up winning and they're like, hang on, what the hell's going on? I'm like, well, just don't do that. Like,
well, and I think that's a good point, is that the more you do those extremes, the more that your physique is going to look extreme and often in a bad way. So if you cut salt and you cut water, it ends up changing how your facial structure looks and you end up looking malnourished, kind of gaunt.
Exactly.
You can't get a pump, you can't look full and tight. And I see that a lot in bikini chicks who I reckon cut out carbs a few weeks out. They'll have a soft ass, they'll turn around, their butt's all saggy and their glutes are saggy. And they haven't got any carbs in their body and they're getting that kind of like keto look where it's kind of not full and healthy. So what are some of yours, Sam? You would have had some good ones when you were with the old Bombshell.
Yeah, well, that was really, I mean, with them, I didn't really have like an off season. I was still doing an hour cardio every day in my off season, you know, like that was pretty full on. And I think that the most food that I ate was like 1,400 calories in my off season. I
remember you got like 4 bits of pasta.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. And you look back now that you count macros and you're like, wow, I ate so much more zucchini. You know, but yeah.
Or when some coaches tell their clients that they're not allowed to have fats because they're unhealthy or they'll get fat.
Yeah, and then they're eating like steak in their meal plan, and I'm like, you realise that
there's fats in it.
Okay, so probably my most ridiculous statement that I think and hear of these days is when coaches go, "Oh, macros don't work."
Yeah,
and it's like, really, like
you're on a meal plan. They've calculated macros to figure out what.
Like that's the funniest thing that I've hear these days. But look, I first started competing in 2006. So back then, like the only coaches that were coaching people were men.
Yeah, old school.
And old school. And so This is the worst thing that I've done. And see, I'm the type of person, if someone tells me, like if I've got someone coaching me, I listen to everything they say and I do everything to a T. I knew that this wasn't right. And I was eating just chicken for a whole week before my show, just chicken, because I couldn't eat vegetables because it had too much sodium in it.
Oh no.
Just chicken. I didn't go to the toilet. I nearly crashed my car.
Even though I'm pretty sure chicken has more sodium in it.
Oh, it was like ridiculous. But I listened to everything, and it was funny. I took out my computer and I was having a look at those photos the other day, and man, like I was so lean. You could see every striation in my shoulders. Like it was ridiculous.
I remember this though, and I just remember at the start of this podcast, you said you used to look up to, well, not used to, you looked up to Summer for. And she basically got you into competing. Like there's so many people that I did look up to, but I actually do remember, Summer, I reached out to you because I remember, like it's all coming back to me now, but yeah, I remember looking up to you in the industry and going, God, you're such a beautiful figure competitor. And do you remember, I think I reached out and I don't know what I talked about. It'd be so good to bring up the combo. But yeah, no, I'm just sorry to interrupt. I just remembered, yeah, it was, that's really lovely. Huh.
Yeah,
nice.
And I mean, when I first started competing, there was no bikini as well, like in IFBB, so it was just bigger. So that's the reason why I transitioned, because for us in WA, they used to have the IBA and the IFBB run together, like behind each other. So I always did the sports model and like the dress and all that sort of stuff, and then I transitioned to bigger. And then, yeah, I guess I went through and did like figure pro and stuff because that's all there was to do. But yeah.
Okay, I'm going to wrap it up because we're an hour and 30 deep. So
I'm going to go.
Like coming to my house shortly. So final one piece of advice for a first-time bikini competitor in the IFBB. Go, MJ.
Oh, can you come back to me? I need to think.
Okay, Summer.
Just present your best self possible, and if you are unsure of anything, like unlike when I first started, there was no one to go to and ask for advice, and there are so many people that you can go to and ask for advice. If you want to ask me, like I'm not going to sit there and charge people. I love just helping people. I love what I do. So if you're unsure of anything, just ask for advice.
Awesome. So mine's going to follow on from yours in kind of the opposite way, but I'm going to say listen to your coach, number one, and then ask people like Summer, judges, people who are professionals. Don't ask some bloke in the gym how you're looking. You know, make sure that the people that you ask have, you know, proper advice, that they genuinely care about you and that they know what they're doing. And I would say just be confident on stage. Confidence is going to come across more than anything else. And if you are confident and you are smiling and you are charismatic, that's going to attract the judges to look at you more than somebody who has the best physique up there, and it can actually enhance your physique even by throwing a little bit of confidence in there.
Yeah. I think my piece of advice for first-time bikini competitors or any competitor, although there is a category that you're entering into and it has specific, you know, requirements it might need, whether it's muscle, not muscle, all that sort of stuff, don't go against what you believe in and what you aspire to look like as well. Yes, to a certain degree, you obviously have to meet the criteria because that's how you want to either win or do well. But at the end of the day, having self-worth and respecting yourself for what you do is the most important thing, and it beats triumphs over a first place trophy every day. And that's something I learned when I was competing. I was always told that I wasn't big enough or my hair was too short or anything like that. At the end of the day, I wasn't listening to anybody. I had in my mind also what a figure competitor looked like, and that's what I wanted to present. I didn't want to go against what I believe just to be competitive. So that's probably the most piece of advice. Yes, yeah, there is a category and that's why you compete. You get up there to be judged and that's fair enough, but also just know your worth and always stick to your guns.
Awesome. I love that. So that's kind of 3 really important pieces of information. You know, be confident, get advice of people who are qualified, and still stick to your morals. At the end of the day, if you don't want to do something, doesn't feel right, and someone's telling you to take something or do something stupid and you know it's something hard, don't do it. So summing up, let these guys know how they can get in touch with you if they need to ask anything. Obviously, MJ is over in Noosa in Queensland, but you'll be at the Arnold's.
I'll be at the Queensland show and the Arnold's. I'll also be at the So obviously we've got a series of free posing workshops, which I think there was just one in Perth recently.
Yeah.
So there's 2 in Queensland. There's one in World Gym Ashmore.
Yeah.
I think I'll just check, it's on the 9th of February, and on the 10th of February there's actually one on the Sunshine Coast at World Gym Maroochydore.
And the best place to look up any of the feds would be on the website or the Instagram.
Yeah, so www.ifbbproleague.com.au. If you have questions for Summer and I, obviously I don't know how you want them to get in touch with you, some of it just Facebook message me. But look, if you are unsure, just go onto the website and submit a contact form.
Yep.
That's generally answered by our head judge, and that's probably the most important person that you really need to get a straight answer from.
100%.
Yeah.
If you've got
But also too, if you're going to ask these questions, be prepared to hear the truth, and don't get angry if judges tell you what you don't want to hear.
Yeah, awesome. And if you've got questions about your specific shows that you're upcoming, because I get a lot of clients that ask me, and sometimes I don't know as a coach, so I email the people running the show and say that.
Yeah, jump on the website, email, fill out the contact form, and that's the best.
You might want to ask something as simple as, are we coming on from the left or the right side of the stage? As your coach, probably won't know, but ask those questions and do your research yourself, because your coach is there to coach and get your physique to that level, or maybe you're posing. But all those little extra things like times of day, running order, all of that, that's kind of on you to go and sort out yourselves. You're adults competing, not kiddies going, coach, what time do I need to be here? So sort all that stuff out yourself, or ask a judge or a show promoter. So we've got upcoming shows. Perth is the 16th of Feb. I think we're the first one.
Yeah, we are.
We're early. And then I think it's Queensland, then Bix, then Adelaide, I think is last, and then New South Wales, I think after Perth too, and then so you can also do any state. So if you are prepping for the Arnolds, you don't have to compete in your state. So say you're not ready for Perth, you could always fly to Adelaide 3 weeks later, do the Adelaide show, and then go on and do Arnolds. I believe you just have to do any qualifier, correct? Before Arnold?
Correct. Yeah, you just have to qualify. Yeah.
And what's the best way of people getting in touch with you?
Just on Instagram is fine, at Summer Bernard.
Slide in the DMs.
Yeah, and look, you can ask us questions leading up, but when it comes to feedback, you have to go onto the Pro League website. We as judges don't give out individual feedback.
Yeah.
When we judge it all, we do write our feedback down on the form. Michael actually videos the whole thing, and he compiles and goes by his videos. So he doesn't even just look at photos; he goes by his videos.
Yeah. And he also collects all our feedback, like Summer said.
So that's how the feedback works. So as soon as you finish on stage, I'd be getting on there and I would be putting it in, especially like with Perth, we've got a bit of time. You've got 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can get some feedback by Arnold's. But definitely ask them. Don't ask us. Don't ask me when because I know everyone. I feel horrible, but people like bailing me up, and I can't talk behind stage. It's the way that it runs, and it works really well.
I think be fair to the judges. They've been there all day. They don't know who you are. They don't know your number. If you message them and go, hey, I'm Sally and I was in the Queensland show, they don't know who the fuck you are. You need to say, if you are going to contact them down the line, send them a stage photo, tell them your number, tell them what show you did, what did you do. Make sure you're clear on all those things, and also expect an instant response when they've got hundreds of people.
I was just going to say that.
That they're dealing with. They have got a very tough job, and I always say, respect the judges, because really they have got a very hard gig. It's a subjective sport, and we need. And
at the end of the day, we're giving our time to wholeheartedly give you a good experience. Competing. That's all we want to do. So you just got to bear with us. We always try our best, and we always try and do right by the athletes, and that's what we strive to do moving forward. So you can reach out, but don't expect an instant reply. Always get in touch with the actual website, if like Summer said, if you want feedback, and
that's it. I think that's everything. So I hope this covers everything for bikini. Obviously, if you've got any questions, like me and Summer, obviously coach as well. MJ's not coaching this year. So that would be something that you can get in touch with us. I'm not taking on anyone else for 2019 for comp prep, but I'm happy to start working with people in their off seasons for next year, which is the best time to start with someone now. It's like a year till the next Arnold's, which actually isn't that far away. I've already started working with girls for 2020. So start to think about all those things. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode. MJ, I'll see you at the Arnold's for your 30th. We're going to go have a wine and Summer's here with me, so, you know, we'll go chat afterwards.
All right, well, have a lovely night, girls. I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you so much for your time. See you guys.
Thanks. Bye.